Hi, I'm Dr. Walter Matwichuk, and the purpose of today's intermittent reinforcement email message is to deepen your understanding of REBT, Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, by talking a little bit about three ways of thinking about the goals of REBT. Certainly, REBT sets out to teach you a couple of core ideas. Ideas like that people are fallible and that their human value can't be estimated, that there are no utopias, the proper definition of acceptance and how it involves an acknowledgement of a negative state of affairs, but it doesn't involve resignation. These ideas are stated clearly in today's email, and there are many ideas that REBT aims to teach you. I list only 10 of them. When you begin to learn these ideas, you develop intellectual insight, which is a good first step, but is certainly insufficient in terms of making the profound philosophical change that we would like you to make. The next thing that REBT attempts to teach you, above and beyond ideas, is a process of self-correction, a self-reflective process aimed at first identifying when you are defeating yourself, and then using the ABC model to break down this self-defeating reaction and to identify different components of your reaction so that you can begin to work on your rigid and extreme attitudes. So what REBT aims to teach is this self-correction process, and it helps you learn how to do it on the fly when you're in situations and begin to exhibit self-defeating emotions and behaviors. However, this process is not easily learned. And so people learn the ideas, they achieve intellectual insight, but they really don't chip away at some of the rigid attitudes that they hold and develop a profound philosophical, emotional change. Now, this can be done, but you have to understand that working at disputing is the only way you can learn how to dispute your rigid and extreme attitudes and to do it on the fly. So I've given quite a bit of thought as to how best to teach this, and I think I've identified one idea that is very obvious and was actually taught to me, and that is that you complete self-help worksheets. However, I think it's also important to observe the process being taught to someone else. Every Saturday, I dispute people's rigid and extreme attitudes in a real problem that a volunteer is willing to discuss. When you watch other people struggle with these ideas and you learn the process that I take them through each week, you observe that process. If you do it often enough, I think you begin to abstract the process and learn how to apply it on the fly to your own problems. So not only is constructing, doing a worksheet one way of learning, but also observing the process being taught to other people. In fact, you could even use a self-help worksheet during the observation of one of my Saturday demonstrations. If you attempt to fill out some of the components that we discuss, it'll enable you to learn how to use the worksheet, closely monitor the discussion, and then begin to really, on a deeper level, learn how to dispute your own rigid and extreme attitudes. Finally, REBT encourages you to act upon the new attitudes that you begin to cultivate as a result of disputing your self-defeating attitudes. Now, acting upon the attitudes is the only way that you develop a deep and profound philosophical change, which REBT aims to help you develop. The best way to act upon your attitudes is to take calculated risks. These are more fundamental changes in your life that you can take that are aimed at increasing the meaning and satisfaction that you derive from life. Now, REBT would argue that making these changes is rather difficult. So you may start with small calculated risks initially, get out of your comfort zone, and move on to bigger calculated risks. So REBT is aiming to not just teach you how to treat your emotional disturbance through the disputing process, but it's also trying to show you a method for making more fundamental changes to your life that can help you deepen the satisfaction you derive from life and actually increase the happiness that you get from leading a full life. So REBT first starts with teaching you ideas, but then moves on to teaching you a self-corrective process. And that's where people begin to stumble, is on the disputing process. Unless you learn how to challenge, dispute, and reflect upon your rigid and extreme attitudes, how to identify them when you are defeating yourself emotionally and behaviorally, and then how to invoke this self-correction process so that you transform your self-defeating emotional response into a healthy and self-helping emotional response. Unless you learn how to do that, you really are not getting the full benefit of REBT. And finally, until you begin to put the new attitudes into action and act upon them, live in harmony with them, that is when you develop the deepest and most profound emotional changes. And of course, you can enhance your happiness and also make deep and profound emotional changes by taking calculated risks. Calculated risks don't always work out, and life has its frustrations. However, when you have unconditional self-acceptance, unconditional life acceptance, and unconditional other acceptance, you can learn how to deal with some of the frustrations of life that you may create for yourself, or other people put in your way, or the gods put in your way. So I would encourage you to carefully read today's intermittent reinforcement email message and begin to understand that go beyond learning rational ideas. Go beyond that and really learn the process, the disputing process that REBT would argue really is what takes you from thinking in a self-defeating way to thinking in a self-helping way. I would also like to remind you that every Saturday I do this demonstration where you can observe this process of disputing. And it's at 9 a.m. Eastern. That's 2 p.m. in the UK, 3 p.m. in Paris, 4 p.m. in Bucharest, 5 p.m. in Moscow, 6:30 in Kabul, 7 in Karachi, 7:30 in New Delhi, and 11 p.m. in Tokyo. I've been doing it now for about 135 consecutive weeks, and the people who have watched it seem to have really enhanced their understanding of REBT and then have shown a better and improved ability to implement the REBT in their life. I think that you would find that observing other people and the variety of problems that REBT can be applied to will be well worth your attendance. I hope to see you on Saturday on my free Zoom conversation hour.